So, considering what I've learned so far in this course, this can inform and transform public policies in areas such as health and education and social welfare by understanding what actually drives people to be more resilient. By understanding how communities interact and form bonds and work together, you can create policies that help people to want to improve mental health and want to improve their community by fostering resilience within those communities. For example, let's say you have an at-risk population, you have like a bunch of people in a poor area. You can't just give them money, but you can encourage their kids to get a better education, which can bring them out of poverty. And as long as the community remains resilient, their kids will do the same thing and be able to keep out of poverty. But how you would implement this in the government or for public policy, you basically just make education cheaper. You would allow school vouchers of choice to students who behave. So only students who actually want to pay attention go to school. You won't deal with the roughhouse students, the problem kids. If only people who would put in the effort could go in, it would foster more resilience. This is actually a big issue in public school. Right now, they have kids who just skip class. They do drugs in school. They don't want to be there, and that erodes resilience in the students who actually participate, seeing that they get away with stuff. Because as a kid, you're not actually going to understand that. So you have to foster resilience within the younger community. So when they're older, they'll have more resilience in the future, stay out of poverty. So that's just an example of how it can be done locally. Or like littering, for example. You can just have public pride where people don't want to trash their community. And you can write public policy that basically allows you to defame people, or public defamation if they're littering. Like, so if someone throws trash on the ground, you can publicly post the video and send it to people. And I think that would build a culture that would say, hey, we don't tolerate these people. We're going to call you out if you litter. We're going to foster resilience. We're going to keep our communities nice. And that's one way public policy could be impacted by this. People could understand how people think instead of this pencil and paper and what might happen. So analysis of real-world resilience, when they've been effectively implemented. One of these is actually the raw materials. So this is one of the most resilient industries on the planet. I've talked about this before, but it has existed for over 4,000 years. People mine materials, people sell the goods, and this industry has been able to be resilient for so many years. Because one, people need the industry, but two, they're also they're properly managed. They're usually held within the family, like emerald mines in Africa. It's one family that owns it. They just keep passing it down. And that family, through resilience, and they keep their things within their family, is able to keep a strong hold on all the resources. I guess one of the more sinister examples of resilience, but it's an example proving that if you stick with something, if you incite a culture, you can keep your community intact long after you're gone. And another is provide a description of resilience strategies employed and challenges faced and the outcomes achieved. So another one was probably Japan. They had a really rough recession in the 1980s, and what they did, they basically promoted more Japanese internal manufacturing. They invested in the future, and even though they weren't doing well at the moment, and they actually took them almost 40 years to recover in the stock market, they actually have a functioning economy for their citizens because they decided to be resilient. They decided to look into the future. They pushed forward, and Japan was able to pull through even though they had 4 decades of stagnation. And they did it. The critical factors that made these strategies successful was, first off, Japan is very like-minded. They're all culturally homogenous. They're all ethnically homogenous. And they understand that they need to invest in the future. So Japan, even though they weren't making money with the things they were doing, invested in the future. They invested in infrastructure. They invested in cleanliness. They invested in culture. And the country is still nice to live in to this day because of what they did. Even when the economy wasn't very good, the country was always nice because of what they invested in. And that's very important. The implications on my analysis for the future of resilience and public research going forward. And how can stakeholders and policymakers and educators leverage resilience concepts to address current and emerging challenges? So policymakers can understand that people who think alike are more likely to have kind of a group. They're going to like try to ally together. They're going to get along. If you were a politician, you understand that, and you understand what they don't like, and that's how you can foster resilience into a community. And if you're a politician trying to get votes, what you can do is you basically foster resilience within the community you want to vote for you, and you get another group who may not agree with you very much, but you foster resilience by reaching out to issues that they've had. Even if they don't affect the group you're trying to reach, you can pull in other people to make a larger community, and now you have a bigger community that supports you, even though they all might not get along, they all might have different backgrounds and experiences, but they all empathize with the politician because he speaks to them. And policymakers could also rewrite school policy, because when I was in high school, there really isn't much things to motivate you to do well, except for the idea of college. And at the time when I was in school, I didn't actually care about college, but what got me to change my mind was that there was rewards if you were resilient. I think a financial reward as a kid would help people get better grades. If you gave like a kid $20 for every A they got on a test, they're going to get straight A's. They're going to study. They're going to get good grades. It's like a job. You get better grades, you get a better job, you get more money. And that could foster resilience between younger generations to be like, hey, I need to study, I need to work, I'm going to get more if I do this thing. Like an immediate reward versus a long-term reward. It might help the students who don't fully understand the implications of their actions yet.